I wanted to do a social studies video because I know I haven't had a lot of social studies videos in the past, and I thought I'd take this opportunity to kind of explain a couple of economic things. Before I get started, I want to let you guys know that when it comes to social studies questions as well as language arts questions, it's really important that you guys read all of the instructions and you read everything that is being asked of you so that in your answer you can answer the entire question in order to get all your points. So please be aware of that as you go and do these assignments. So let's talk about economics. I'm going to show you my Google slide presentation and explain it, and then that way you guys can go back and review it so that you fully understand the concept of supply and demand. So here we go. Okay, so economics as a basic is simply the study of how people meet their basic needs and wants. So I've talked about this before where a need is something like fresh water, healthy food, clothing, and shelter. A want is something like a PlayStation or fancy clothes or anything fancy that makes your life a little easier. We can live without the things that we want. We cannot live without the things that we need. You may think that you can't live without a PlayStation. Your life may not be as enjoyable, but you can actually physically live without your PlayStation, okay? So let's keep that in mind as we go through. There are three basic economic questions or questions about economics that any person of business needs to ask themselves. And so that would be what goods and services should be produced. Like, what are you going to sell? Are you going to sell car washes, which would be a service? Are you going to sell apples, which would be a good? What are you going to produce for people to buy? The second question, how should goods and services be produced? Meaning, how are you going to make it? If you have a service of a car wash, are you going to just set up people in parking lots and wash cars? Or are you going to build that big structure and have cars run through it? If you're going to produce apples, are you going to buy the apples from other orchards and then sell them on your own? Or are you going to actually plant the trees and have the apples be grown on the trees themselves and then you pick them, okay? And then number three, who uses and consumes the goods and services? So like, who is going to buy your good or your service? Is it going to be families? Is it going to be young professionals? Is it going to be kids? Is it going to be adults? Is it going to be the elderly? Is it going to be people that live in the city? Is it going to be people that live in the country? You need to think about these things when you are producing goods and or services, okay? Producers and consumers. So a producer it's similar to what a producer is in science, but a little different. It's actually a person. It's not a plant. But they are people and companies who make or provide a good or service. So like Taco Bell, Apple Computers, McDonald's, any company that makes something or provides a service. The plumber that comes and fixes your clogged drains would be a producer. The Apple Computers is a producer because they produce the technology that you use. A consumer is people who use or buy a good or service, and that's pretty much almost everybody. Everybody is a consumer. Even the plumber that comes and fixes your drains, the plumber still needs to go to the hardware store and buy or consume the tools needed to do his or her job. So everybody is a consumer in one way or another. You and I are all consumers as well because we buy goods and services every day to help us live our lives. Okay, supply and demand. So you have to think in the way, you can think in the way of a producer or you can think in the way of a consumer in this, but basically supply is how much of a certain good or service is available for a producer to sell. So, you know, it's the amount of apples you have if you have an apple orchard, or it's, if you're a plumber, it's the amount of appointments that you can have in one day. You can't see 100 people in one day. That would be impossible. But if you only see one person in one day, then I feel like that plumber would not make as much money. So the supply is how much of the good or service you have in order to sell. The demand is the desire for the certain good or service to actually be bought and paid for. So if you have like 100 apples and you've got 400 people that want your apples, the demand for your apples is going to be really high. You have more people that want your product than you actually have the amount of. If a plumber is not very good at his or her job and nobody wants to schedule this plumber, then the demand would be low for the plumber and the plumber would not have a lot of business. So those are the two things. Supply and demand, really, really important. Okay, let's move on. So there are laws with supply and demand, and this determines the price. So when demand is high, meaning a lot of people want to buy the good or service, and the supply is low, meaning you don't have a lot of the good or service, then the price of the good or service tends to be higher. We definitely see this in two major things. Around Christmas time when it comes to, or holiday times when it comes to kids' toys. For example, that PlayStation, like the PlayStation 5, I believe is going to come out next year, and I think it's going to come around the holiday time, and they do that on purpose. Like they'll only make a certain amount of units of the PlayStation because they want to sell out, and they're going to charge a really high price for it. It might be, I don't know, $400 for the PlayStation 5 when it first comes out, and they might make only, for example, 10,000 of them. Well, I can guarantee you that more than 10,000 kids in this country would love to buy or would love to have a PlayStation 5. And so all the places that sell them will probably sell out very close to when they put them on the shelves, and people are going to pay that $400 price for them because everybody wants it and it's brand new and there's not that many of them. Now, if you go try to buy a PlayStation 4 right now, it's been out for a long time. The price of that probably will be around $200, where when it was first made and sold, the price was higher because of the laws of supply and demand. Right now, you can go buy a PlayStation 4 probably for around $200. Not that much compared to when it was first out. Same product. It's just that there are, which leads me to the next law. So let's go that. When the demand is low, but supply is high, the price of a good or service tends to be lower. So that PlayStation 4 that's been out for a long time, you're not buying more than one PlayStation unless it breaks, but you're not having two PlayStations in one house. So once you buy one, you're not going to buy another one. And a lot of people have them. So when not a lot of people need them anymore, or want them anymore, and the Sony has a lot of PlayStation 4s that they have made, the price of that PlayStation 4 is going to be lower because not a lot of people are buying them, and Sony has a lot of them that they're trying to get rid of. Okay, so here's some more vocabulary that you should be aware of. Incentive, that is something offered to make someone behave a certain way, often money or a prize. So let's go back to that PlayStation. A lot of times, like right now, that PlayStation 4, sometimes they will give you free games if you buy a PlayStation 4. The free games is the incentive for you to buy that good. You see a lot of times when it's like 30% off sale, 40% off, that's the incentive to buy it. Or it's buy one, get one free. Any of those deals is an incentive for a consumer to buy that product, that good or service. Scarcity, in short supply, shortage, or rare. So when the PlayStation 5 comes out next year, it will be scarce because Sony is not going to make a lot of them, and they do that because they want to sell them all for the highest price. So that's why on Black Friday after Thanksgiving, you see this mad rush of people going into stores or buying online to buy stuff because things are scarce. Opportunity cost. This is a tricky one that it's like once you get it, you'll know it forever. So opportunity cost is the loss of potential gain from other options when one option is chosen. Let me break this down for you. You go to McDonald's. When you get a combo meal, usually you have a choice of the chicken option or the beef option. Like you can get chicken nuggets, chicken strips, chicken sandwich, or you can get the cheeseburger, like the Big Mac or the quarter pounder or whatever. You can't get chicken and beef. Okay, if you do, then you're buying multiple things. But for a combo meal, you can't get chicken nuggets and a cheeseburger. It just doesn't work like that. So whatever you choose, the other one becomes your opportunity cost. If you go in and you decide to get the chicken nugget meal, then your opportunity cost is the cheeseburger, because you're giving up the cheeseburger in order to get the chicken nuggets. In life, you can't buy everything. You can't have all the options. So there are opportunity costs. It will cost you the cheeseburger because you're giving it up in order to get the chicken, and vice versa. So we see this every day in our buying choices. Like when you go to a gas station, you want a candy bar. Well, if you choose the Snickers bar, then all the other candy bars become your opportunity cost, because, I mean, who can eat 30 candy bars? You would get sick, right? So opportunity cost basically is the thing you're giving up in order to make a decision. Okay, let's move on. So this is an exit slip for supply and demand. I'm going to read this to you. I'm also going to give you the answers, but what I am going to do is ask you to pause the video and just jot down the your answers to 1, 2, and 3, and then you can hit play and see if you were close in the answers. So here we go. Here's an example. You are a pumpkin farmer. Every fall, tons of families come to your farm hoping to get pumpkins to carve into jack-o'-lanterns. Unfortunately, there was an unusual amount of rain this summer and your pumpkin fields got flooded. Because of this, your fields were only able to produce half as many pumpkins as normal. Even so, you were still able to make as much money as you had made in previous years when your pumpkin fields didn't get flooded. So here are your 3 questions. What happened to the supply of the pumpkins for this fall? Basically, did it go up or did it go down? Number 2, did the demand for pumpkins change? Number 3, using what you know about how supply and demand can affect prices, how is it possible that you were still able to make as much money as usual off of your pumpkins, even though you only had half as many to sell? So if you're paying attention to number 3, it kind of gives you the answer to number 1. So I'm going to have you pause the video, just jot down your answers or talk about it with a member of your family, and then hit play to see the correct answers. Okay, so hopefully you did hit pause and you didn't just play this video all the way through, because I want you guys to try. So here we go. Here are the answers to the exit slip, okay? So for number 1, the supply of the pumpkins went down because the extra rain caused flooding. The flooding ruined half of your pumpkin crops. So your supply was down because half your supply got ruined by the rain. This happens with farmers all the time with natural disasters. The weather or nature will affect the supply of their good, their crop that they have able to sell. But the farmer made the same amount of money this year as he did last year. So let's look at number 2. The demand for the pumpkins did not change. The same amount of people wanted pumpkins as last year. So if 100 people wanted pumpkins in 2019, the same 100 people wanted the pumpkins in 2020. But let's pretend in 2019 you had 100 pumpkins. In 2020 you only had 50. Okay, the demand stayed the same. The same amount of people wanted the pumpkins. So let's look at question number 3. Since I had less pumpkins and the same demand, I was able to double the price of the pumpkins, sell out, and make the same amount as last year. So let's pretend last year you sold 100 pumpkins to 100 people at $1 per pumpkin. You would make $100, right? This year, the same 100 people wanted pumpkins. You only had 50. So what you would need to do is you would need to raise the price of the pumpkins from $1 to $2, and then you would sell those 50 pumpkins at $2 a piece. Well, 50 times 2 is 100, and you would sell all your pumpkins and make $100 just like you did in the previous year. But the thing is that not everybody gets a pumpkin. And yeah, that's sad, but that is the law of supply and demand, okay? That's why you see these rushes on Black Friday and these sales companies want to sell out of their product. They would love to sell out of their product at the highest price, which means they need to have more people want the product, good or service, than is available. Okay, so there you go. Law of supply and demand. What I want you to do now is I want you to watch the video about hula hoops. It's from a movie from a long time ago called Hudsucker Proxy. It's a good clip, and I just want you to explain what happens to the hula hoops and their price and why. You must use at least 5 sentences in order to do this, and you got to use the vocabulary of supply, demand, and price. Good luck. I can't wait to see your answers.